My left leg was amputated. When the car accident happened, I pushed Damien Shin away, and he was unharmed, but my left leg got caught in the wheels. To repay the kindness, he married me, who was sitting in a wheelchair. After more than 10 years of marriage, we accompany each other and move forward hand in hand. Life has its ups and downs, but I have always considered myself relatively stable and happy, until I died from respiratory failure caused by chronic myelitis. He sat by my grave talking. He said, "You lost one of your left legs to save me, and I have been trapped here with you for over a decade. Now that you're dead, I finally have my freedom. In this life, we are clear with each other. If there is a next life, no matter how far the mountains and rivers, we will never meet again." After saying that, he lit the marriage certificate of me and him in front of the grave. 3 months later, he remarried in a high-profile manner, inviting guests from all over. The bride I know is his former first love, Lydia Lynn. After exchanging rings, he tightly embraced the woman, his voice choked with emotion. "All these years, I have made you and our daughter suffer. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day of the accident, living this life again. This time, I choose to respect his wishes." The glaring summer sunlight hurt my eyes. The heat rising from the ground wafts up from my calves, so real it makes my heart tremble. I instinctively lowered my head. When my gaze reached the unharmed left leg beneath the hem of the skirt, my emotions lost control in an instant. It really has been too long, since I felt this down-to-earth sensation. The man beside me, who was quickly replying to messages on his phone, looked up at me in surprise, seeing me in tears. He was taken aback and nervously asked, "What's wrong? You were fine. Why are you suddenly crying?" I slowly raised my tear-filled eyes, my gaze passed through the hazy mist. Looking at the man in front of me, 22-year-old Damien Shin is really good-looking. He is full of vibrant energy, with relaxed brows and eyes, clear and bright, still free from the fatigue and gloom that would later seep into his gaze. I almost forgot, it turns out that before we got married, he looked so spirited. Damien Shin noticed my gaze, and his good-looking brows lightly furrowed. This barely perceptible change made my heart suddenly tighten. In my previous life, whenever he thought I was being unreasonable, he would always look down at me coldly with this expression. I felt despair and guilt. He raised his hand to wipe away the tears on my face and sighed, "Are you still angry about me getting into the detention center for fighting for you? I've explained it to you many times. It was that bastard who tried to molest Lydia, and I smashed him with a bottle in a fit of rage. In that situation, I took a step back to avoid his touch and, "You don't have to explain to me. This matter has nothing to do with me. It's your freedom to save whoever you want." Damien Shin's expression showed a moment of blankness, and the remaining words were stuck in his throat. After a long time, his voice was tense, and he frowned as he asked me, "What do you mean by that?" I looked down at my intact left leg again and replied calmly, "It means the literal meaning. By the way, the compensation I paid for you just now, along with the medical expenses I covered for the injured person before, totals 57,170 yuan. That money was saved from my part-time job and used to pay off my student loans, so please pay me back as soon as possible." The previous life. When I found out that Damien Shin was detained for fighting, I thought I had misheard. A normally gentle and polite student council member, a model student praised by teachers, he had never even turned red in the face with someone. How come he ended up fighting with street hooligans, even ending up at the police station? Later, I paid his compensation fee, signed the paperwork, and picked him up, but when I saw the man in front of me, I was immediately shocked and froze in place. He was in a terrible state, his face swollen and bruised, the right sleeve of his shirt torn off, and his hands had scabbed wounds. This appearance is completely disconnected from the Damien Shin I met in college 3 years ago. He explained to me in a panic when he saw me, Lydia and her friend were at the bar, being harassed by a drunken thug. That man was trying to force himself on her on the sofa, and Li Cheng and I happened to see it. We couldn't just stand by and do nothing. I was surprised that he suddenly went to the bar with friends, but he has always been sincere and enthusiastic, so I had little doubt about his words. Although we are lovers, we also maintain our own space and freedom. In such a situation, even if not a classmate, it is one's duty to step forward and save the girl who was harassed. Moreover, I also know Lydia Lin. She is a high school classmate of Damien Shin and Li Cheng. She is now studying at the same school, majoring in music performance in the College of Arts. although we don't interact much. In my impression, she is beautiful and graceful, and I have a good impression of her, however. Damien Shin's method of hitting a thug's head directly with a wine bottle to save someone is a bit too extreme. Fortunately, this case was resolved through mediation in the end. Otherwise, Damien Shin would really have gone to jail. The only thing that struck me as strange was that the police did not mention the key detail of the thug forcibly molesting Lydia Lin when handling the case, and merely classified the incident as a simple fight. It wasn't until many years later that I inadvertently learned the truth of the matter from Damien Shin's group of friends. That was 2 months before my death. Damien Shin's close friend Li Cheng, who was also our university classmate, held a housewarming party after moving into his new villa. Naturally, Damien Shin brought me along as well. At that time, my condition was already very poor. Chronic myelitis causes nerve pain that torments me day and night. On top of that, I also suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, and my mind is in a state of high alert. My emotions are easily stirred, and I don't get along well with the people around me. So while everyone is chatting warmly, I feel like I can't fit in, and I went to the garden of the villa alone. The moonlight is cool, like a layer of thin frost sprinkled on blooming tulips. I quietly sat in the wicker chair beside the flowering tree, my fingers unconsciously stroking my left leg, which wore a prosthetic. Just as I was daydreaming, counting the sparse bright stars in the sky, the window on the first floor of the villa was suddenly opened. Warm yellow light spilled out from inside the room. The laughter of several men, mixed with the click sound of a lighter, soon reached my ears. Damien, how do you put up with Celeste's aloof personality? Does she not even smile? Her face has been cold all night, making it seem like we, as a couple, have neglected her. I remember she wasn't like this back in college. This is the voice of Li Cheng, the host of today's warm house banquet. Damien Shin whispered a few words, probably to apologize for me or something similar. Another male voice interrupted. Come on, there are many disabled people in this world, but I haven't seen many who are as self-centered as her. It's not that I'm mocking you, brother, but you've really messed up your life. Celeste looks at least 20 years older than you. I was really shocked by her appearance just now. Is it worth giving up Lydia Lin for such a woman? Someone else echoed. Yeah, I think Shinji has really lost his mind. Back in the day, he and Lydia Lin were recognized as the golden couple in our high school. Even the principal turned a blind eye. Now, to give up an excellent woman like Lydia for someone like Celeste, who is disabled, is just too foolish. The night breeze carries a hint of smoke, rushing into my nostrils. I am in the darkness, looking at the man standing by the window. The cigarette in his hand flickers, yet he hasn't said a word. Li Cheng flicked the ash from his cigarette and suddenly sighed. You guys should stop talking. Don't forget, Lydia Lin was the one who betrayed Damien first. After she went to college, she started dating that guy with a luxury car. Otherwise, Damien wouldn't have ended up using Celeste, who looked about 60 to 70% like Lydia Lin, as a stand-in, and it backfired on him for life. He took a deep puff from his cigarette and then crushed the butt in the ashtray. Also, if it wasn't for you guys meddling in the middle, encouraging Lydia Lin to get back with Damien after their breakup, she wouldn't have ended up going to a bar and deliberately getting involved with that hooligan, and even posting photos of herself with him to Damien. It turned out bad, and Damien ended up smashing the hooligan's head with a bottle of alcohol and got arrested. This matter was eventually resolved thanks to Celeste's efforts. She not only called in a lawyer friend to help mediate, but also paid for Damien's compensation out of her own pocket. Otherwise, Damien would have definitely gone to jail. Li Cheng finished speaking. There was a moment of silence among the crowd. In the end, I don't know who said, "Hey, why bring up those past things? Even if she has a great debt of gratitude, since Brother Shin married her, hasn't that debt been repaid?" I found myself in the darkness. My throat felt as if someone had suddenly tightened their grip around it. The inner collapse came like a tsunami. So it was like this. From their intermittent conversation later, I finally pieced together the complete truth of the matter. Lydia Lin and Damien Shun are each other's first love. The boy is excellent. The girl is beautiful. Everyone says they are like the male and female leads from a youth novel. But after entering university, Lydia Lin met a senior who drives a Ferrari. On the day they broke up, Damien Shun was heartbroken and drank himself into a drunken stupor. He waited at Lydia Lynn's dorm for 3 days, but couldn't get even a single explanation from the girl. However, within a year, Lydia Lynn's relationship with her senior ended in a breakup. After that, Lydia Lynn started contacting Damien Shun frequently, wanting to get back together. At that time, I had already officially started a romantic relationship with Damien Shun, but she was not going to give up. She would buy breakfast in the cafeteria every day and wait downstairs at the boys' dormitory. She would put the love letters she wrote into a light-scented white envelope and ask Li Cheng to put it in Damien Shun's backpack. She persisted for a year, but the man still did not turn back. Until her birthday that day, she specially booked a hotel and put on the new sexy lingerie she bought. Her birthday gift to herself, a way to make peace with her past youth. She said, "This is the only time, and from now on, she will no longer disturb." However, Damien Shun did not keep the appointment. Drunk Lydia Lynn sent a video to Damien Shun from the bar. In the scene, a stranger's hand had reached into her exposed neckline. Damien Shun rushed to the bar and saw her being held down in a booth. Her skirt disheveled. Damien Shun was overwhelmed by anger. He pulled Lydia Lynn off the man, then fought with him. Due to being overpowered, in a panic, he grabbed a bottle from the table and smashed it over the man's head. I found out about what happened later. Damien Shun's act almost ruined his promising future. The other party refused to settle and insisted on putting Damien Shun in jail. After I found out, I contacted the lawyer I met while working as a part-time translator and asked him to help handle the matter. I have also visited the man in the hospital multiple times, pleading with him in a low voice to reconcile. After a week of difficult negotiations, the other party finally relented. He wanted 50,000 yuan in compensation plus coverage of all his medical expenses, and agreed to settle the case. Damien Shun did not want his parents to know that he had an incident at school, so the more than 50,000 yuan was paid by me as an advance, which came from my scholarship and the money I earned from translation jobs over the past few years in college. The car accident that led to my amputation happened on the way back to school from the detention center. At that time, after receiving a phone call, Damien Shun suddenly said he wanted to go to the supermarket across the street to buy something and asked me to go back to school first. Just as he was crossing the street, a black sedan lost control and rushed towards him. I didn't have time to think. My body reacted before my brain. I rushed over and pushed him hard, but my left leg was caught under the wheels. Due to the severity of the injury, a large area of tissue in my leg has necrosed. To save my life, I had to amputate my left leg. After leaving the operating room, Damien Shun held my hand tightly. He knelt in front of my hospital bed with swollen eyes, promising that he would take good care of me for the rest of his life. Later, I applied for a leave of absence and gave up on pursuing a master's degree, lying stiffly in the simple rented apartment that Damien Shun rented for me every day. The only outdoor activity was Damien Shun taking me to the hospital for rehabilitation training. 1 year later, Damien Shun graduated from university, instead of starting to look for a job like other graduates. He discussed with a few friends to start a media company. He took the remaining 800,000 yuan from my accident compensation as the startup capital for the company. My rehabilitation treatment was forced to be interrupted. Many years later, my attending physician told me that if I had been able to complete all the rehabilitation courses back then, perhaps it would not have developed into long-term chronic myelitis. Later on, Damien Shun took me home to meet his parents. When his parents learned that their son's fiancée was a woman with a missing leg, their faces instantly darkened like iron. They didn't even bother to maintain the superficial niceties. Right in front of family and friends, they pointed at my nose and cursed at me. They scold me for being shameless, call me a cripple, and say I am a burden that only drags their son down. But no matter how they scold me, I remain indifferent. What other options do I have? I lost a leg to save Damien Shun. I developed severe post-traumatic stress disorder due to amputation. At night, I always struggle in pain between fear and despair. Given my current condition, Damien Shun is already my best choice. On what basis do they want me to give up? No, I would never. Unfortunately, I didn't recover well after losing my limb. Chronic myelitis has left me in a terrible state. In his late 30s, his hair is almost all white, and his face is very aged. Damien Shun has hired 2 nannies to take care of me, and he transfers $20,000 as pocket money to my account every month. He rarely comes home, and when he does, he stays in the study until late at night. He is always busy and often travels on business. On the night of Li Cheng's warmhouse banquet, I experienced a tremor and difficulty breathing due to an episode of post-traumatic stress disorder and was urgently sent to the hospital. I asked Damien Shun for an explanation, but he always avoided showing up. 2 months later, I died in the hospital from respiratory failure caused by osteomyelitis. Until the last moment, Damien Shun did not appear again. After death, my soul lingers for a long time. I watched the nurse cover me with a white cloth, looked at the gradually brightening sky outside, and saw the tardy Damien Shun standing in front of my corpse, his face surprisingly showing a sense of relief. After handling the funeral, he sat in front of my newly built grave and lit a cigarette. He said, "Celeste Jiang, you lost a left leg to save me, and I was forced to stay by your side for more than 10 years, drawing a line in the sand. Now that you are dead, I am finally free. In this life, we are clear with each other. If there is a next life, may the mountains be high and the waters be distant, and may we never meet again." After saying that, he ignited our marriage certificate in front of the grave. I followed Damien Shun to a luxurious villa. A woman in a silk nightgown ran out of the villa barefoot. She dove into the man's arms. It was Lydia Lin. She hugged the man's waist and softly comforted him. "Honey, don't be too sad, that woman is gone, and we can live well as a family of 3 from now on." The man silently nodded. In the evening, I saw their daughter, who is already in the 3rd year of junior high school, but I have been married to him for 15 years. It turns out that the marriage I once thought was stable has long been completely rotten. I don't know if it's the memories that make the hatred in my eyes surge so obviously. Damien Shun softened his tone, his voice gentle to the point of being almost flattering. "All right, don't be angry. I'll gather the money and transfer it to you as soon as possible. Now, let me take you to eat your favorite dessert." "Okay." I disgustedly shook off his hand that was trying to hold mine. Damien Shun was somewhat taken aback, his right hand awkwardly suspended in mid-air. At that moment, his phone suddenly rang. He glanced at the caller ID, then hurriedly shot me a glance, his expression unnatural as he said to me, "Celeste, wait a moment, I need to take a call." Then, he covered the receiver and walked a few steps away. "Hello, Lydia." His hushed voice drifted over the wind. "You don't need to worry, I've taken care of everything, and I'm out of the jail now." The other end said something unknown. I watched as his ears turned slightly red. He whispered, "What brand of tampons do you use? Okay, if your stomach hurts, stay in the dormitory and don't come out. I'll bring you some tampons and painkillers later." When he hung up the phone and turned around, there was still a lingering tenderness on his face that he hadn't had time to hide. He awkwardly said to me, "Celeste, I suddenly have something to do. How about you go back to school first? And I'll buy the dessert later and find you downstairs at your dorm." I glanced at the messages constantly popping up on Damien Shun's phone and said, "No need, I have things to do tonight. You go ahead and take care of your own business." The man subtly breathed a sigh of relief and nodded, saying, "All right, then I'll leave first. Be careful on your way back." In the slanting sunlight, I watched him eagerly walk across to the other side of the road. I remember the moment of fear and despair when my left leg was caught under the car in my previous life. I suddenly blurted out, "Damien Shun." He turned his head and smiled at me. "What's wrong, Celeste? Is there something else?" I looked at the man who had been by my side for nearly 20 years in my previous life. The man who once knelt at my bedside, swearing to love and care for me for a lifetime. The evening sunlight cast a hazy red glow on him at that moment. The green light behind him turned on. "Cross the road carefully. Watch out for being hit by a car," I said. Damien Shun was stunned, then smiled at me. "Don't worry, your boyfriend is tough." I said nothing more, then turned and walked towards the school. A few seconds later, I heard a screeching brake sound behind me, followed by a bang, a heavy object hitting the ground. Someone screamed in terror. "Ah, I hit someone. Quickly call the police." I tightly gripped the strap of the canvas bag on my shoulder, my nails digging deep into my palm. The surging crowd kept rushing towards the intersection where the incident occurred. Suddenly, my stomach convulsed violently like a raging sea. I could no longer hold it in and bent over, retching violently. I stumbled back to the dorm in a daze, only to collide with a pair of eyes that seemed to want to say something but held back. "Celeste, my roommate seems to hesitate to speak." I threw my canvas bag and phone onto the table as if all my strength had drained away. I randomly grabbed the cup next to me and gulped down a few mouthfuls. The icy liquid slid down my throat, cooling the heat that was churning in my chest a little. "What's wrong, Yao Yao?" I asked. My roommate hesitated and pushed the phone towards me. "This post was just posted 5 minutes ago. Is the injured one really Damien Shun from our class?" I looked at the phone screen. The title of the campus forum on the screen is Financial College's Damien Shun involved in a serious car accident near Cultural Square. In the webpage, although the photo has been blurred, the blurry dark red bloodstains are still shocking. I stared at this content, speechless for a long time. At that moment, the phone suddenly vibrated on the table. It is a string of unfamiliar landline numbers. I casually clicked on the speakerphone. A woman's urgent voice came from the other end of the phone. "Hello. May I ask if this is Shu Celeste? We are the emergency department of the 2nd Municipal Hospital. Damien Shun has been in a car accident and is seriously injured. Please come to the emergency room as soon as possible, either you or his family." I frowned. Shouldn't the hospital directly notify the school or his family? How could it come directly to me? I replied, "Sorry. I am just an ordinary classmate of Damien Shun. I suggest you contact his family directly." The person on the other end clearly paused for a moment. "The emergency contact on the injured person's phone is only you. Could you please help contact his family? I don't know how to contact her family, and I have other matters to handle, so I'll hang up first." After saying that, I hung up the phone neatly. I looked up to see 3 faces in shock. Their mouths were slightly open, as if they were meeting me for the first time. But at this moment, I don't want to explain anything, just dragging my heavy legs into the bathroom. These past 2 days, the classmates in the class often gather together to talk about something, and when I approach, their conversation suddenly stops, without even thinking. It must be about me behind my back. I don't care. Attend classes as usual, eat alone, and go to the study room to read and study when there are no classes. Finally, on the morning of the 4th day, Damien Shun's roommate Li Cheng stopped me in the corridor. He had some anger on his face. "Shu Celeste, do you have any heart? Damien is in the hospital. His right leg is shattered, and the doctor said his right leg is likely to be disabled. It's just a limp. In my previous life, I had my entire left leg amputated," I replied calmly with a faint expression. "So what?" Li Cheng's expression was slightly twisted, and he angrily said, "Almost all of our classmates have gone to see him. Even Zhu Hao, who has had conflicts with him in the student council, went. But you are his girlfriend, yet you haven't even called him. Is your heart made of stone?" I gave him a light glare and said, "Maybe Zhu Hao went to the hospital to see a joke. You." Li Cheng was so angry he choked. He couldn't find anything to retort at me for a moment. I stared directly into his eyes and reminded him, "Perhaps if Damien Shun was injured, you should have informed Lydia Lin, not me." Li Cheng's expression froze. The atmosphere froze for a moment. Just at that moment, the sound of music for the class echoed from afar. I sidestepped and pushed his arm away, walking into the classroom through the back door without looking back. A voice filled with suppressed anger came from behind. "Shu Celeste, you are truly the most cold-blooded person I have ever seen." I tugged at the corner of my mouth, curling into a mocking cold smile. "Cold-blooded, compared to you bunch of heartless, hypocritical trash, what I have is really nothing." But in the end, I still went to the hospital to see Damien Shun. As soon as the ward door was opened, a strange smell rushed to the nose. Damien Shun's right leg was wrapped in thick bandages, which had dried yellow stains and were seeping some dark brown blood. It looks quite disgusting. I heard that his injury is very serious, and he must first undergo debridement and anti-inflammatory treatment before surgery can be performed after the inflammation is controlled. I looked at the man half lying on the head of the bed. In just a week, he had almost lost all his weight, and his pale cheeks were deeply sunken, just like I was in my previous life at this time. He looked very weak, but the moment he saw me, his eyes brightened. "Celeste, you're here." The man's hoarse voice was filled with joy. He sat up straight with excitement. Perhaps he accidentally pulled at the wound. He frowned and let out a painful groan. However, in the next moment, when his gaze inadvertently fell on my intact left leg, his eyes, which were originally filled with joy, suddenly trembled. Damien Shun remained silent, but his gaze was firmly fixed on my left leg. I quietly walked to the chair by his hospital bed and sat down, placing the canvas bag on my lap. Shoo Celeste, why didn't you save me that day, or? You clearly could have stopped me. I know you could have. His voice was not loud, but it carried an uncontrollable tremor. A tightness gripped my heart, and a sour, bitter emotion instantly spread to my limbs and bones. Damien Shin, has he actually come back? I looked at him coldly but did not answer the question he asked. He felt a bit uncomfortable under my gaze, and a cold sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. It's been so many days since my car accident. And it's rare for Miss Shu to finally remember to come see me. Well, because after the exams next month, we will have summer vacation, I said. Damien Shin seemed to not understand what I said, frowning and looking at me in confusion. I'm not going to take a summer job this summer. I've made plans to travel abroad with friends, so I need you to return the 170 yuan to me now. Damien Shin stared in disbelief, his eyes gradually turning red. His voice was tinged with a bit of brokenness. Did you come to the hospital just to ask me for money? Shoo Celeste, do you even have a heart? Have you ever truly loved me? Damien Shin's question made me laugh. He actually asked me if I ever truly loved him. So how did I lose my legs in the last life? Was it because I didn't want them? Suddenly, the scene of Li Cheng saying he regarded me as Lydia Lin's substitute flashed in my mind, and after I died, he sat in front of my grave and said those words. How can he, a scoundrel of humanity, deserve my love again? I let out a laugh. Damien Shin, do you think I'm someone you can easily fool? He was slightly taken aback. Then, he replied angrily, when have I ever fooled you? In the previous life, I was diligent and took care of you, who was disabled, for a whole 17 years. What else do you want? I sneered coldly. Are you going to take care of me? In the 2 years before we got married, you did take care of me, but more often than not, I was the only one at home, hopping around on one leg with a crutch, taking care of myself. Later, we got married, you had money, and you hired a nanny, feeling so moved by it. Damien Shin, tell me honestly, how many times did you really take care of me? Damien Shin's face turned red. Am I not supposed to work? Am I not supposed to earn money? I socialize and travel for business every day, all for you, for our family, right? Do you think the 200,000 I give you every month comes from nowhere? Socializing. Business trips, I repeated his words sarcastically. Is going to the Lanyuan villa to have an affair with Lydia Lin considered socializing? Or is attending a parent-teacher meeting for your daughter in the 3rd grade considered a business trip? Hearing me mention Lydia Lin and his daughter, Damien Shin's expression changed drastically, and the color drained from his face. After a brief silence, he suddenly laughed strangely. He said, Shoo Celeste, do you know how I feel every time I go to bed with you and see the stump of your left leg? I just want to vomit. Really, it's a physiological disgust, wanting to throw up every time I share a room with you. I have to take medicine in advance and suppress it desperately to continue facing you. If what you mean by fudge is this, then I did fudge you. Each of his words was like a poisoned knife, directly stabbing my heart and twisting again and again. I tried to stay calm, but my jaw still couldn't stop trembling. Tears were almost about to overflow, but, no way, I don't want to collapse in front of such garbage. I stood up, raised my right hand, and with all my strength, I slapped him hard across the face. Damien Shin, you fucking piece of shit. Why didn't the car just run you over that day? The man's face was knocked to the side by me. He pressed his tongue against the bleeding corner of his mouth, his Adam's apple rolling back and forth. I took a deep breath, trying my best to suppress the tremor in my voice. Today, I don't want to hear how much you used to hate me, and I don't want to talk about the kindness of saving you in a past life anymore. Since these are all matters of a previous life, there's no need for anyone to bring them up again in the future. I came here for 2 things. First, for us to break up. Second, for you to pay me back immediately. From now on, we will cut ties completely and never have anything to do with each other again. I stand in front of the hospital bed, crossed arms, looking coldly at Damien Shun, who was angrily calling relatives and friends to borrow money. When the Alipay notification said 170 yuan had arrived, I blocked all his contacts in front of him. About to turn and leave, Damien Shun's voice came from behind, coldly. Well, Celeste, I want to see how well you can live in this life without me, relying only on your scheming father and your calculating stepmother. When the time comes, if you regret it and want to come back to me, I may not necessarily accept you." I paused for a moment. The faces of those disgusting man and woman unconsciously floated up in my mind. That woman is my mother's cousin. After my mother was diagnosed with late-stage cervical cancer, she came to take care of my mother for a while. As a result, she ended up in bed with my father. After my mother passed away, I became a thorn in her side. She was completely focused on her daughter with her ex-husband, racking her brains to try to drive me, who was not yet 14, out of the house. My dad acted as if he didn't see it, and even under that woman's instigation, he forced me to drop out of school to work and earn money. Naturally, I was unwilling. Fortunately, I had excellent scores in the high school entrance exam, and my high school tuition was waived. Later, I managed to finish 3 years of high school by working hard to get a scholarship, and by selling the gold bracelet my mother left me. Damien Shin certainly knows how terrible my family background is. He also knows how much I hate that pair of scoundrels, but now, he deliberately uses them to provoke me. Anger hummed to the top of my head. I turned around and walked to his hospital bed, then slapped him again and spat on his face. I spit. "Do you want me to turn back? It's noon now. What the hell are you dreaming about in broad daylight? I see, you are just like those two beasts. Both of you are lowly creatures that crawled out of the same nest." Damien Shin's face instantly twisted, with veins bulging on his forehead. He suddenly jumped up from the hospital bed and lunged at me, but because his right leg was injured, he fell heavily to the ground. "Celeste." He growled my name with clenched teeth, as if he wanted to devour me alive. I looked down at him coldly with disdain and then slammed the door and left. I have cut off all contact with Damien Shin. However, the things about him inevitably reached my ears through other classmates in the class. I heard that he had a severe infection after surgery, which led to sepsis, and he stayed in the ICU for more than a month. His parents came to school to help him process his leave of absence. Lydia Lin wore a pure white veil to encourage him and took a photo of herself kissing Damien Shin on the hospital bed. There are still people on the campus forum who specifically post about their romantic relationships. Classmates all envy Lydia Lin for her unwavering love for him, saying that they are true love. But I don't have time to pay attention to them. I am busy preparing for the Advanced English Interpretation exam, busy studying for the Graduate Entrance exam, and busy enjoying the feeling of running freely with my healthy legs. Every day immersed in BBC News and TED Talks, I even practice simultaneous interpretation in my dreams. The name Damien Shin has long been blurred by the waves of learning. The next time I saw Damien Shin was in the winter of my senior year, just before New Year's Day. At that time, just a few days after the initial exam for the graduate school entrance exam. The nerves I had been tense about finally got a little bit of relaxation. That day, I sat by the artificial lake with a cup of hot cocoa, watching the artificially raised seagulls play and circle on the lake's surface. Suddenly, a heated argument broke out not far away. "Damien Shin, why aren't you staying properly in your rental place? What are you doing running to school and acting crazy? Look at you now, neither human nor ghost, you've scared my friend away." The woman's voice was filled with anger and disdain. I looked over in the direction of the sound. Behind the bare kapok tree, I saw two familiar figures. In the cold winter weather, Damien Shin was only wearing a wrinkled checkered shirt. He was extremely thin, and at that moment, hunched over with a cane. He looked quite miserable. Damien Shin's eyes were bloodshot as he sarcastically questioned, "Friends, you call this being friends? You're all cuddled up together, and you still call it friendship?" "Lydia Lin, I only took a break from school for a while, and you couldn't wait to sneak around with someone else behind my back. No wonder you haven't been answering my calls or replying to my messages lately. If I hadn't come over secretly today, I wouldn't have known you were cheating." Lydia Lin looked extremely impatient. "My affairs are none of your business. I'm not getting involved with anyone else. So do you really think I'm going to marry you? If I had known you would end up being a level 7 disability, I would never have gotten together with you. If I dared to bring you home, my parents would break my legs. Do you look down on me?" Damien Shin started trembling violently. He lost his composure and shouted, "Don't forget, I became like this for whom? If it wasn't for buying things for you, how could I have been hit by a car? Then why don't you call the police?" Lydia Lin's voice was cold. "Go ahead, if you have the ability, let the police arrest me. Clearly, it was you who didn't look when crossing the road, and that driver really has had the worst luck. I warn you, Stay away from me in the future, and don't come looking for me again. I have nothing to do with you." After Lydia Lynn finished speaking, she turned around and left. Damien Shin's body seemed to lose all support, his cane fell, and he also lost balance. Falling to the ground on his right side, a sarcastic smile lingered at the corner of my mouth as I watched this good show from start to finish. Damien Shin struggled painfully to crawl on the ground. Just as he looked up, his gaze happened to collide directly with mine. He trembled all over, as if struck by lightning. Freezing in the biting cold wind, Monday's early class at 8, I was wearing headphones listening to music, holding steaming dumplings and soy milk in my hand. Rushing into the classroom, just as I found an empty seat and sat down, my good friend Shui Yang came over. She mysteriously nudged my elbow. I took off my headphones in confusion. Shui Yang leaned over and lowered her voice. "Celeste, have you heard? Damien Shin's girlfriend from the art school is dating a junior from the sports school." She couldn't hide the gossiping expression on her face, and her tone carried a hint of excitement. "That girl went to a hotel with the junior yesterday and was caught by Damien Shin. Damien Shin got into a fight with that guy, but he has a limp, so how could he possibly be a match for a sports student? As a result, he was sent to the hospital again last night." I tore open the breakfast packaging with my hands. Shui Yang continued. "Yesterday the police were all dispatched. That athlete and that girl were taken away. It was simply outrageous." "How was it?" She suddenly grabbed my wrist and asked me with big blinking eyes. "Did you feel relieved after listening to it?" I smiled and nodded. "Yeah, it really is relieving. They deserve it." The girl chuckled. "That's more like it. Ever since you broke up with Damien Shin, I hardly ever see you smile. It's hard to find a three-legged toad, but there are plenty of two-legged men." I looked at her gratefully. She is the only one among my classmates who has always shown me kindness, in the eyes of other classmates. I am the epitome of a selfish person who immediately broke up after Damien Shin's accident. They think people like me are not trustworthy. Shui Yang bumped my shoulder again, her eyes twinkling. "I heard you passed the advanced English oral translation test on the first try. That's really impressive." I smiled. "Well, maybe I just got lucky. Then, I'll treat you to dinner tonight. You can choose any restaurant." Okay, the past 6 months have flown by, and before I knew it, the first semester of my senior year is almost over. Many classmates have already left school one after another after finishing their exams. After we finished the last exam in financial engineering, my roommates are also packing their bags to go home. Shui Yang has a lot of luggage, and she called me to help her move her bags to the taxi parked outside the campus. When I sent off Shui Yang and returned to the dormitory, I found that the other 3 people had already left. I stood alone in the empty dormitory, suddenly feeling indescribably sad. I still remember that September when I first stepped into university, greeting them shyly. Now, it's already so fast to graduate, next semester. Except for a few students who are preparing to take the postgraduate entrance exam on campus, everyone will go their separate ways and start internships. The next time we meet should be during the thesis defense. I washed my face and stood in front of the mirror for a long time. Feeling very down, I picked up my canvas bag and went downstairs to go to the supermarket to buy some milk and dry food. The supermarket will also be closed in 2 days. As soon as I left the dormitory building, I saw a familiar figure not far away. I glanced at Damien Shin, who was leaning on a crutch by the corridor, and tried to pretend not to see him as I passed by. He saw me and was a bit surprised, quickly hopping on his crutch and jumping to where I was. "Celeste, you're down, aren't you? I need to talk to you." I didn't want to have anything to do with him, so I said coldly, "Get out of my way, you're blocking my fresh air." His eyes were slightly red, staring straight at me, his eyes full of deep affection. "Celeste, don't do this. I was specifically waiting for you here. You don't have anywhere to go during the winter vacation, right? I rented the apartment we lived in last time. I'll help you move your things there, and we'll spend the new year together." I rubbed my temples in frustration. He can't possibly think that I would miss that rental apartment that felt like a cage to me. "Right, Damien Shin, are you done yet? Didn't you say yourself that in the next life, with mountains high and waters far, we would never meet again? Who are you pretending to be so sentimental for now?" As I said this, I wanted to bypass him and leave, but Damien Shin grabbed my arm. "I'm sorry, it's my fault. I've been blinded by greed. I take back those words." He raised his hand and slapped himself twice. "Celeste, I regret it. Let's get back together. I swear to you, I will treat you well for the rest of my life. I really have no words. It's like my mother opened the door to my speechlessness. I'm speechless. I violently shook off his hand. Get your dirty hands off me. What qualifications do you have to touch me? Damien Shin's face turned pale, and his eyes were misty with tears. Celeste, how can you be so heartless, after all? We have been married for over 10 years. I don't believe you have no feelings for me at all. How dare he accuse me of being heartless? When he treated me that way in the last life, he never considered whether he was being heartless. I saw him standing firmly in front of me, refusing to leave. I lifted my foot and kicked hard at his intact left leg. He cried out in pain. The other leg, which is lame, cannot exert any effort at all. After staggering a few steps, he fell heavily to the ground. I shrugged innocently and said, I already told you to get away from me. You insist on bothering me, and I suspect you want to unlawfully restrict my personal freedom. I'm just defending myself. Damien Shin lay on the ground, looking at me with a face full of sadness and deep affection. Celeste, I don't blame you. If this can make you feel a little better, I'm willing to do it. You can kick me as much as you want, as long as you can forgive me. I looked at his smug expression. Afraid that I might kick him too hard, no one is blocking my way anymore, so I naturally don't have time to chat with him. I lifted my foot and directly stepped over him. In late February, the results of the initial exam for the graduate entrance examination were released. The score was good, more than 20 points higher than my last mock exam. It's an above-average performance. Considering stability and my own level, I didn't aim for the first-tier universities, but instead applied for popular majors in second-tier universities. The direction is smart finance. Then came the intense preparation for the interview. I heard about Damien Shin again 6 months after I started my graduate studies. Since that time I kicked him. He harassed me for a while, but every time, I either beat him up or called security or the police. Gradually, he stopped appearing in front of me. That day, I had just come out of the finance lab. I received a voice message from Shui Yang on my phone. During the chat, she told me that Lydia Lin and Damien Shin got married and invited quite a few of our classmates. I curiously asked, weren't they broken up before? Then, I heard an extremely shocking story. Lydia Lin worked as a music teacher during her internship at a private elite primary school. She ended up having an affair with the student's father. The student's mother found out and posted explicit photos and explicit chat content of her and the man online, because that man is an executive of a publicly listed company. The trending search terms exploded that night. #exposed. Certain executive in passionate encounter with intern teacher in car # Noble primary school music teacher intervenes, exposed by the legal wife # legal wife exposes explicit chat records between executive and intern teacher #. This incident happened shortly after. Lydia Lin was knocked out by someone on her way home one night, and when she woke up, she found her hands covered in blood. Upon diagnosis, it was found that the tendons in both of her wrists had been precisely cut. After treatment, although she retained her ability to carry out daily activities, it would be impossible for her to play instruments like the guzheng and piano again. So, Damien Shin took advantage of the situation. I asked Shui Yang, you guessed right. Damien Shin approached Lydia Lin and said he would take good care of her for the rest of her life. They just had a wedding a few days ago. It was quite grand, and my girlfriend went too. I smiled. They really are a pair of lovers, becoming a couple in 2 lives. After graduating with a master's degree, I entered an international financial company through campus recruitment and became a management trainee. The job requires frequent travel between Shanghai and Hong Kong. I became busier, but I still found time to start a relationship. My boyfriend is an alumnus I met during my master's program, majoring in artificial intelligence. On Valentine's Day, because I was working in Hong Kong, I had a long phone call with my boyfriend after work. After hanging up the phone, it was already late at night. I opened WeChat and saw over 100 unread messages in the class group chat. Everyone seemed to be discussing Lydia Lin and Damien Shin. I curiously flipped through it. The earliest message was a forwarded news article. The woman, unable to endure long-term domestic violence, poisoned her entire family with rat poison. In the news photo, the person wearing a yellow detention center vest, who is bowing their head for an interview, is none other than Lydia Lin. Lydia Lin's account, since getting married, she has fallen into a deep abyss. She has to take care of her husband with a limp leg and also deal with his demanding in-laws, even when she was pregnant. She was made to do housework by her mother-in-law. She just said she would do it later, and was pushed hard by her mother-in-law. She bumped her belly against the corner of the table, and the child in her womb was lost. But her husband not only didn't feel sorry for her, he instead scolded her harshly, calling her useless for not being able to protect a child. After just returning home from the curettage surgery, she was beaten by her husband. Since then, her husband seemed possessed by a demon, often finding ways to torment her. Every time he saw her kneeling in pain and begging for mercy, a morbid pleasure would appear on his face. She spent the entire day in fear and despair. She tried to escape, get a divorce, and seek help from her parents, but each time she tried, she was met with endless beatings from her in-laws and the man. Finally, she broke down. The long-term oppression and despair made her completely give up the struggle. She bought a large amount of rat poison and repeatedly mixed it into the meals of the 3 people, until her mother-in-law suddenly vomited and fainted, and was rushed to the hospital. The truth was finally revealed. Looking at this news, I felt neither very pleased nor particularly moved. Perhaps true letting go is when seeing their messages feels completely irrelevant. In the 18th month of the management training program, I finally passed the confirmation defense. When HR handed me the offer with the base annual salary, I instinctively held my breath. This does not include the performance bonus I might receive at the end of the year. Life has really become bright. I have a healthy body, a satisfying job, and a like-minded partner. In my last life, I was deeply trapped in pain and suffered from physical torment, but fortunately, I am already standing at a brand new crossroads in life. The wind comes from the other shore, bringing with it a chill and freedom. It's just that occasionally, in the stillness of the night, I always feel that a part of my heart is missing, until one night of overtime, amidst the distant flickering lights, memories suddenly flashed back to the disgusting faces of my dad and stepmother. It's been 6 or 7 years since we last contacted each other. It's also time for me to check in on their family. So, taking advantage of my vacation, I went back to my hometown. I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but the day I went home happened to be the day my stepsister got engaged. It's clear that the whole family is very satisfied with the boyfriend of the stepsister. My father and stepmother are lucky they don't have tails, otherwise they would be wagging them all the way to the sky. The man is the son of a factory owner. He is tall, good-looking, and wealthy, which is why my stepsister looks at men with love and happiness in her eyes. My dad and stepmother didn't have much of a reaction to my return. They were still as cold and indifferent as before. They would become a bit more enthusiastic when mentioning that their daughter found a wealthy husband. During those days in my hometown, I found someone to inquire about the detailed information of my stepsister's husband's family's factory. I saw a job posting for a receptionist at their factory on a recruitment website, so I spent a lot of money to hire a beautiful amateur actress. I also carefully designed a script, allowing the actress to apply according to my plan, getting closer to my good sister's fiancé. If I succeed in making them tear apart and break off the engagement, I will add another 200,000 as a bonus. Of course, I will not force her to use any illegal means. If she, then it's her own problem. The girl indeed did not disappoint me. In just 3 months, news came that my stepsister and her fiancé were having a breakup. 2 more months passed. A girl sent me a transfer of 888 yuan, along with 2 marriage certificates. The bride was her, and the groom was none other than my sister's fiancé. I hadn't processed it yet when her video call popped up. As soon as I answered, I heard her clear and happy voice. "Sister, hurry and take the red envelope. And I and Jiaming are going to have our wedding next month. Can you come and be my maid of honor?" I was a bit confused. After I reacted, I quickly said, "Oh, right, then I'll add a bonus for you here. It's still the same bank card, right?" She interrupted me directly. "I haven't properly thanked my sister for introducing me to Jiaming. I don't want the bonus. However, I found out yesterday that I'm pregnant. Can I ask my sister to be the godmother of my child?" This, seeing my hesitation, she threw out a condition that I couldn't refuse. She implied, if not too far in the future, if you need a professional actor, I can introduce you. This time, I choose to respect his wishes. I heard her patting her chest on the phone. "Of course, send me the location and time of the wedding. I will definitely be there." Saying this, Maybe someone will say that my stepsister is innocent, but when her mother climbed into my mother's bed, making my sick mother vomit blood. When she moved into my bedroom openly, throwing my belongings into the community trash bin like garbage, when she colluded with classmates at school to bully and mock me, giving me the nickname Ground Mouse, no one ever cared about whether I was innocent or not, since her mother could seduce my father back then. Why can't others seduce her husband? Looking at it from another angle, how could I not be helping her avoid pitfalls before marriage? What kind of good match is a man who can be easily lured away? If one day she sees clearly, she will probably thank me. I will sincerely tell her, no need to be polite, this is what an older sister should do.